Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is really a continuation. On Thursday I filmed watering my pots and had to talk about the plants as I picked them up. I'm going to do the same thing again today with the rest because I didn't get it finished. We ran out of water and feed and the video was already an hour long. So basically I'm carrying on today, which is Friday morning. It's quite early Friday morning, but the video will be posted on Saturday, if that makes sense. I'm out most of the day on Saturday, so the filming I'll be doing will be Alan's greenhouses and that will be all, and that probably won't get posted on Saturday. So this will be Saturday's video basically. Exactly the same principle as before. I've mixed up exactly the same feed, all bar a couple of TDS points, but as near as damn it. And we will be going through the motions, and today we're going to be doing that rack there to the left of the door, the rack to the right of the door, and Derek's plants, and some of those on that table. One of them it comes into the cooler, shadier set, Odontoglossum, but the other two will get done. So that's what we're up to. So let's get going, or this one will be even longer. I'll move the camera around so that you can see what I'm doing, which is about there without too much of the door frame in it, something like that. Yeah, that'll do. And yeah, let's get going. So from where we left off. Right, here we have I'll class it as a failing plant, but it does seem to be recovering a bit. This is Epidendrum. It's Comet Valley Orange Star, and it's, quite honestly, it only has one growth that's come from the base recently. The other two new growths that you can see are both actually kikis, but there is another one coming from the base down here. All it needs to do is get some more roots into the pot like this, and it should start to recover. But it's been struggling for a very long time, this one. It's just showing signs this year of perhaps getting okay again. But it's just not been a very good plant for whatever reason. Anyway, that's that one. Has lovely orange flowers if we ever get to see them again. Right, so then this is a Oncidium type, probably intergeneric, and it's called Cheyenne, but that's probably a trade name. It's probably not a registered name. Basically it's doing a strange thing again. It's done this before, where it pushes up what looks like a really strong new growth, and it's a pair of new growths inside, one of which looks like its growing tip's gone, the other one may continue, but that's not a proper growth. There's something genetically wrong with this flipping plant. It's always been like that. Every time it puts up a new growth, it's not quite right. But it did push on and produce a bulb, and this time produce a spike. So it's difficult to say what to do with it, apart from just let it be. Let it do what it wants to do. And if it flowers, well, fine. Right, next one is completely in the wrong part of the pot. Why on earth I pot? Oh, I know what happened. I put two pieces in this pot and one of them died. That's why it's all over one side. But this is the weak Shari Baby, the one that's not growing very well at all. It does have a new growth, but I wouldn't class that as a good plant. And that new growth has still yet to push any roots down in the media. So that bit of the Shari Baby is not doing very well. As I see this mould on the leaves, it's only on a few plants, it's not all over the place. I just wipe it off with my finger. And then remember not to lick my fingers or eat anything with my hands, for obvious reasons. Right, next one. Next one is a coming on plant. I can tell that without even looking to see what it is, just by looking at it. This is a Garechia Again, it's a Prosthetia really, I suspect. Nice strong new growth, pushed up a good bulb last time, bigger than the bulbs before, that's good, but the sheath didn't produce buds. However, we now have a lot more roots going on and a nice new growth, so this latest growth may well bloom. Might not, but it could do, so we'll wait and see. Effectively, as far as Prosthetias are concerned, if you can't find any specific care guides for Prosthetias, the best thing to do, the closest approximation you're going to get, is think of them as a Cattleya. They are in the Cattleya Alliance. I'm going to sneeze. Or maybe not. Maybe we got there too early. And deprived myself of a good ratu. Nothing quite more satisfying than a good ratu. But preferably not when you're in the middle of filming. Anyway, that's that one. Where do we get to? Right, next one is one of these, you know, flat pots in a black pot. But this one comes out okay because it's got something inside to hold it up. This is Dendrobium lindleyi. Failing miserably on its mount. It's been taken off into a pot. It's now got 1, 2, 3, carefully, 4, 5, 6, 7 new growths. So they look like this. They're just sort of pointy bits at the moment, although there is one round here that's actually getting its leaf. But yeah, quite a few new growths now. With those new growths will come roots, and that will recover the plant. Hopefully enough that this year it will recover successfully enough that we might get some blooms next year, because we didn't have any this year. It didn't bloom, whereas it has done in previous years. Last year, I think it bloomed last year, but not very well, but that's a distant memory. The year before, it bloomed very well, but that was at the other place. Right, then on the last of the top of this shelf are the two antelope type dendrobiums that have only recently been repotted. These will be bone dry, I suspect. So this one has got its new growth coming, it's got new roots, and it's now in a media more suited to it, because this was in compacted moss that was staying wet. So that wasn't doing it much good at all. So hopefully that will grow on. Being a bit silly with these are warm to hot growers. Chances of me getting them to bloom, they need highlights. They need Vanderlight as a bare minimum. So blooming these successfully in the UK is not going to be easy. And then this is the other antelope one. Lovely big strong new growth coming. You certainly can't complain about the growth. That's absolutely stunning. And another little one coming up the other side of the plant. This needs sorting out. Its roots are wrapped in coconut shell basically, and to get it out of that is going to seriously damage some roots. There will be good root loss involved, but the guy at Spice Exotic told me that if you just try and remove part of it and not try and do all of it all at once, you only lose part of the root system. And if you do it when some new roots are growing, it's not so bad for the plant and it will recover quicker. So we might be giving that a go. Right, so that's the top of that shelf done. I'll shut down while I put this lot away, but I won't do it with wet hands, not on my camera. Right, I'll be back. Right, we're on to the next shelf down now, the middle shelf. There's only 2 plants on this shelf, so this won't take long. Now this is a oncidium that looks exactly like sweet sugar. It has a good strong new growth that has pushed up a flower spike unexpectedly, and that new growth has produced 0 roots and the plant has 0 roots. You can see it's just balancing. I just hold it very, very carefully, but it's not got roots. and I've never known an Oncidium type producing new growth with no roots. So I keep the base of the plant moist with some moss near the top of the pot, and hopefully at some point it will produce some roots, but it hasn't done yet. Zilch, 0, naught. Have a slurp of coffee. Right, next one's a biggie. This is Catatanti, and this needs to push a spike up. Come on, you. You're messing me about. It's an enormous plant, very healthy, good roots. It's doing okay, but it won't bloom. It's got new growths coming out all over the place, in the middle of the plant, around the edges of the plant. It's a lovely, strong, healthy plant. It's got an absolute bucket load of roots and not a spike in sight. So I was just having an extra good look, because I know what it's like often when you say there aren't any spikes and there should be, and you look properly, you suddenly find one that you didn't know was there. But nope, no such luck. If you ever come across one of these, Catatanti, get it. The spikes are very rewarding. You need some room, because they can grow into, as you can see, quite a large plant, but it's the spikes that can be the problem. They can be, you know, up around a metre long, but they are spectacular, you know, when they bloom. The colours are gorgeous, lovely autumn shades, oranges, yellows, coppery, bronzy colours, lovely colours, and a very floriferous branching spike that can have anything from 50 to 100 blooms on it. They're not huge, but they certainly perform. Except this one, of course, which has decided it's not going to perform and just will not bloom. It will eventually. I mean, I'm moaning about it. I mean, shouldn't really bemoan a nice healthy plant, should you really? But I really would like to see some blooms on this. Let's just have a count round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at least new growths on there, and they're big, strong, healthy growths. Where am dem blooms? Not a light yet. I keep saying yet on that one. They'll come eventually. They'll be there. Who knows, it might do one of those surprise things where it suddenly produces loads of spikes all at the same time. That's what the Shari Baby did. The big one, not that tatty thing that we just looked at. Right, and then in this tray, one of the plants in here, if I haven't lost it, because none of them have got tabs, is the original one that was misnamed for years, which I can never say. It begins with OR and then thing. But it's what Soto Annum was confused with for many years, and if I haven't lost it, it's in this little group somewhere, because I'm pretty confident I have one, the real thing. But this is what's left of my twinkles. They failed on their mounts, got put in pots, and some died quite quickly. Some hung in there for a while and then rotted, and this is what's left. And you know, I mean, this one, it's growing roots, it seems okay, but if you look at a couple of the leaves, they've got variegation on them, and they shouldn't have. So there's something not quite right with that one. Then there's this little one here, which goodness knows what colour that is. But again, we've got new growths and we've got some roots, so it's recovering. So one day we will find out which twinkle that is, because somewhere in here, hopefully, is the yellow one, the cinnamon one. My tiny twinkle, I know which one that is, because that's still got its tag in it. But there are others, like I said. Again, this one, it's recovering. It's got nice new growth, yeah? And blow me, it's got a spike on it. I'm going to have to cut that off. I can't let that bloom, it's too weak a plant. But yes, this new growth's got a little spike coming up just there on the end of my finger. So I will let that get a little bit longer and then trim it off. There's not enough strength in that to produce blooms. It will take even longer to recover if I let it do that. It would be nice to know what colour it is, but the energy that the plant would use pushing up a spike, because the spikes take a long time to grow and often produce quite a few flowers, so you know. Now this one's only just hanging in there, and this one has a name. It's not actually a twinkle as such. It's Oncidium Siku Marguerite Chianzi Glory, but half of it is a twinkle, and then I think it's crossed back with Soto Annum, something like that. But it's recovering, it's got some new growths, but they're weak. It's not a strong plant. But it's hanging on. Now that looks like a twinkle when it blooms, apart from the blooms are a little bit bigger. But it's a pink, it's like a pink twinkle basically when it comes out. But as I said, the blooms are... And then what was my best twinkle of all was Tiny Twinkle, which is this one. Now this is recovering okay because it has multiple new growths. And again, if this tries to bloom, I will stop it. I want these new growths to form a good root system and get my plant back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new growths coming on there, and between those new growths we will get roots, and then that will bring the strength back into the plant, and those growths will mature, and then next year's new growths will be on a plant with a lot of reserves, or a lot more reserves, and should be okay to bloom then. These are only in that tray for ease of carrying, because it's easier to carry a tray. I mean, that did have about 8 plants in it once, now it's only got 5. Right, now my holy clay pots used to be in a separate set. They're not anymore, although they often get watered once in between the other pots, because obviously they dry quicker. But they're not in a separate set now, so I put one of those plants back around its black cover. Right, let's get that done. The algae off, that's all it's for, the black pots. So the holy clay pots are few in number now. There was one in yesterday's video, the Roy Tokunaga. Somebody said, should that be in a clay pot, being a Latoria type? Well, it survived quite well through last winter by being kept very dry, and I prefer not to disturb its roots as it's happy at the moment. There's nothing wrong with the media it's in. The pot could be debatable. Evaporative cooling the roots on a plant that likes to stay warmer, but I'm not going to disturb the roots. Several of the other cattleyas that were in holy clay pots have since been moved into ordinary pots, like this one, this first one. This is the red one with the huge big long name. Siang Yu, Red Pearl, Red Dragonfly. And this is the one that when we repotted it, broke the new growth off. Duh. But we didn't break both of them off. So we do have a nice new growth coming up here. It's not a bad plant, that one. It's a good plant to have because it doesn't have long internodes between the, you know, along the rhizomes. The bulbs stay very close together and grow bolt upright, so it's a very compact upright plant, but not necessarily a small plant, if you see what I mean. It just grows dead straight up. Now my Hercoglossum, I water this and put it on the floor, because if I put it on this table it will take up nearly all the table. Now this one was almost lost. I'd have been very sad if I'd lost this, but it got put in a pot with some moss to grow some roots, and all you need to do really is just look at the surface of the pot. There's green, there's lots of green shoots coming up, and those green shoots will produce roots. The roots will get this plant going again, and from now on it will be a potted plant, it won't be a mounted plant. It seems that in this place most of the mounts are not doing as well as they used to in the other place. And those that I've managed to rescue, i.e. not too late, this black pot's got a big rock in it. 1 to hold it up and 2 to stop it falling over. because obviously it's very one-sided, very lopsided, this one. Right, that goes on the floor. In fact, it can go on there, so I'd have to bend down to floor level. Right, next one is the radiata, Prosthetia radiata. Not long been repotted. And this one's currently in, fragrance. You get near it, it hits you. This has got 2 strong new growths coming, lots of roots growing, and the 3 previous bulbs in bloom. So this one's doing everything. It's growing roots, it's growing new growths, and it's actually in bloom at the moment. Blooms are not really long lasting, but the fragrance is powerful. I know some people that don't like it. Some people I've heard say that they've tried this plant and they thought the fragrance was absolutely wonderful, and then it got them. If they stayed in the environment with that fragrance too long, they started to get a headache. So I'll give it a little cautionary tale. Hannah had to leave the room at Burnham. She had to leave Orchid Paradise because she started to get watery eyes and her head was busting. So she left the room and couldn't come back in again. She came back in about an hour or so later for a quick look, but we'd spent a fair bit of time in there. We'd spent a fair bit of time trying to find where the fragrance was coming from, and it was half a dozen of these specimen-sized plants all along the edge. And then Hannah decided it didn't agree with her, so she went out and had a cup of tea somewhere, I think. Right, this is a Rhine-Catalanthe. Of course it is, and it's Verret Star Track, not Star Trek, Star Track. And latest new growth is doing roots, and at the back end of the plant, unusual for a Cattleya, it's pushing out another new growth which is also producing roots. The previous new growth produced a sheath but didn't bloom. I'm hoping at least one of these 2 will bloom. Much more strength in the plant now, good roots coming on nicely. Nice to see the blooms on that, because that was a relatively recent purchase. Just trying to think where from. I think that was the last time I joined in with a Schwerter order. So I'd have gone through the pictures and chose that for its bloom specifically. And have yet to see them. We shall see. Then another one of the other smaller Cattleya, which is, does it actually say? It's an Epicattleya and it's Volcano Trick Orange Fire. Now this was on a mount. This came from Jeff's, I believe. It's okay. It's not a brilliant plant, but it's okay. Nice new growth coming with new roots. So in the final stages of recovery, I would say, because once the roots start on the Cattleya and they get into a media that you haven't got to disturb for a couple of years, they normally do well. From that point on, they normally get going okay. Right, more coffee. Right, next is my Laelia anceps. It's looking very sorry for itself. It's difficult to work out why. But the plant is going downhill. It's not doing as well as it should be. Now, 2 leads on the plant. One here that's split. Yeah? One of them has a new growth. The other one has an eye that looked like it was going to grow and then it stopped. The other lead also split into 2, and neither of those have a visible new growth. In fact, I do believe there's a new growth down in that sheath. But I want to repot this, but I daren't. It's been in this pot a long time. I want to repot it, but I daren't do it until I can see some new roots coming from the front of these leads. Because although this is one plant, when I repot it, it will become two, because I need to take the back end off, because the back end is stopping the front end from being pushed back. And as you can see, these are right on the edge of the pot. So even this new growth here, I suspect the new roots, some of them will go over the edge of the pot. But hopefully I will catch it before then and we'll get it repotted. But it's not doing as well as it should, not by a long chalk. I got a feeling, for once, the fact that it has been in the pot a long time, I got a feeling the media is starting to compact and possibly break down, and as such, down in the pot there, it's actually staying too wet. That's a possibility. Right, and then the other, if you want to see a really bad cattleya, then I'll show you one. It does have a reason. This was one of the ones, this is my Laelia purpurata, and it's the variety striata, lovely blooms. But when I did the bleach treatment and got it wrong, this was one of the cattleyas that suffered badly and lost most of its roots. And it's never really recovered properly. It's two plants in here. There's a smaller plant here, which has shown no signs of new growth yet. But if you look at it, you know, that's one of the leaves, that's another one, and that's the other one, that little one there. So that's what that plant's trying to put up with. Two leaves that have probably stopped photosynthesizing, they're all wrinkled and shriveled, and that tiny little leaf, that's what that plant is. The other plant, again, has got leaves like this, yeah? They're not doing the plant any good at all. They're not really supplying any food or energy to the plant. But round the front of this plant, there is one green leaf. It's not brilliant, and that one's partially green. But we do have a new growth. We'll see what that does. But this has got a life cycle that, you know, I mean, this new growth here looked like it was going to do okay, but the leaf's deformed, so it wasn't happy. So difficult to know what this is going to do. But this particular species has a distinct growing cycle, which involves growing and maturing its bulb, or bulbs if you've got more than one on a plant, in the growing season, and towards the end of it, as it matures, it produces an absolutely massive sheath with no buds in it, and then it rests, and it rests for quite a few months until the buds start to form later, quite a bit later. So it has a pretty distinct rest when it's not doing anything, and it's quite easy to overwater during that period, because you see your massive sheath and you think, oh, it must be a bit dry, it's not producing the buds. No, that's how it works. That's what it does. Right, let's get this. Oh, I'll turn this off while I put these back, I forgot. Just flick it back on, because I forgot to say something about cattleyas. Also applies to spikes on Phalaenopsis. Use the light. If you've got any form of directional light that comes from just one main direction, turn your pot to get the bulb or your Phalaenopsis spike to grow towards it, and that can avoid some hassles. Yeah, because this plant is leaning that way. Yeah, you can see it curves over this way. So I want this growth to come out this way. So I'm pointing that side of the pot at the window so that this bulb will go this way, help to balance the plant. And you can do that with your Phalaenopsis spikes. What I do with them, you know, they're in the kitchen at the moment, so they have absolute directional light, a window. Yeah, so as the spike comes out, I point it towards the window. Yeah, and it grows along the length of the leaf. Yeah. And then when it gets to a certain point and I can see the buds starting to form, don't leave it too late, I turn it 180 degrees round so that the spike's pointing away from the light, and it will curl back on itself. and then all the blooms will be above the plant. And it won't hang out all over the place, making the plant unsteady and unstable. Roger's top tip. Right, no, I should just carry on now. There's only a couple more to do, apart from Derek's. In fact, I'm not going to film watering Derek's. We looked at them in the one shelf at a time quite recently, so I'll shut down then. Right, this is a Zygo hybrid. It has new growths coming. It is producing some roots, but it's not what I'd call a happy plant. But it may be again one day. Another one objected to being repotted, as they do. But hopefully it's recovering now. As I said, it's got new growths. They're all producing roots, and there's 3 of them. And it's maintained some of its leaves. So we should be okay. That one should make it. Very difficult to repot those without damaging the roots. And then the other Zygo, tried this one this is just in bark and growth stones. Again, nice new growth pushing on. No attempt to bloom, which is good because I don't want it to. Another new growth coming here, down at the base of the plant, and growing roots. I'm not treating this plant as best as I could be doing, and the reason is it's in this particular mix, which is drying quicker than the watering run. So this plant ends up spending a couple of days quite dry, and it shouldn't do. But that would mean watering it separately, which at the moment I haven't decided to do. So that's those 2. A bit more coffee. And then the last one on here is the one that we've played about with recently, trying to find out what the hell it is. What we know is what it isn't. It is not Shelob Tolkien. I'm reasonably confident that I've now got the right name for it. To be honest, I'm not fussed one way or the other. It's not the end of my world if this is named wrong. But nonetheless, we were reasonably confident we'd found the right name in that video, but somebody else came up with another name and they said, could it possibly be this one? And I went and had a look, and again it was virtually an exact match, and the name was totally different. I suspect if I'd looked up its makeup, it would have had a lot of the same in it. But anyway, this is a good plant. It came from Sean down in deepest Devon, and I know Sean because, well, 2 reasons really. He's a member of the Devon Orchid Society who hold their shows within Burnham's, so I always go to that. But also, at one point, he bought quite a few plants off of me, and when he said whereabouts he lives, which was, I think it was Taunton, or anyway, on the way to Burnham's, we arranged to meet in a car park so that he could take the plants to save me having to wrap them up and post them, which is always a pain in the proverbial. I hate doing that job. And we met in a car park that he recommended because he said it's a great place to stop for breakfast. And it is. And every time I go to Burnham's, whether it's with Lynn or not, we stop there for breakfast. It's that good. We've done it ever since. The first time we went there, during semi-lockdown, I'll call it, because we weren't obviously locked down or we wouldn't have been going. But they had opened up their private garden and spread tables out so that people could sit outside, as the law required, with their masks on if they chose to, miles away from everybody else in their little unit groups. And I'd made a group of 2 with Lynn. But Lynn said that's the best coffee I've ever tasted, and she is a coffee connoisseur. She really knows her stuff with coffee. Unlike me, who will drink most coffees. Right, last 2 then. We've got the Victoria Regina. Now, last time this grew a cane, I declared that it wasn't a proper cane, it was a kiki, because it started there. not at the base. But it did push some roots down. I mean, it's got a reasonable root base, this. But that cane pushed on and still has leaves. So this one, out of all the canes, has yet to produce blooms, and it probably won't while it's still got leaves. Those leaves will probably drop sometime this year or early next year. This just keeps blooming. This old cane here has bloomed there, 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 and there, and it's just going to do it again there. This one's just finishing off the cluster that side, and it's got one opening up this side. Yeah, and if you look at the top of this cane, 3 clusters. So I keep moving it the wrong way. 1, 2, 3 on top of that one. So, but what's more important is the new growth this time I'm going to class as coming from the base of the plant. So the latest cane is growing from the base. So I'm happy that it's okay. That stayed in its pot from Burnham's for a very long time. It has recently been... Has it been repotted? I can't remember. I think it has. I think I repotted it recently. But with that new cane we will get some new roots. It doesn't desperately need new roots. It's got plenty in the pot. They're not what I call active roots. They haven't got growing tips on them, but they're alive and working. That's that. It took me nearly two and a half years to get that. I went to Burnham's, and in Orchid Paradise up the far left hand end there was a rack across, you know, the sort of, opening, and it had all of their Victoria Regina's specimen plants all along that rack, all in bloom. Absolutely stunning. And I went up to Sarah and I said, have you got any of these for sale? She said, no, we haven't actually split a specimen plant for some time. I can take your name and you can be down for, you know, a division next time I split one. So I put my name down. About a year later, I was down there again. I said, any luck with the Victoria Reginas? She said, oh, I knew there was something else I meant to ask Arthur to do, so they still hadn't been done. And I said, well, as it's taken so long, when you do it, can you make sure I get a good one and I'll come and get it? Save you all the wrapping and posting. I'll come and get it, which I did. And that was it. Right, last one then is the Shari Baby. Now I'm just going to peel a few of these. Once the blooms start to go, they drop like flipping flies. And they get all tangled up in the plant and all over the floor and everything. So I'm just getting those out of the way first before I pick the plant up. Because as soon as you shake the plant, they all come off. Right, so that manky looking one that we looked at earlier, this is the bigger version of that. And I do believe there was 2 plants went in here as well. It weighs a ton, this plant. It really is. Look at the size of these bulbs compared to my hand. These are enormous bulbs. So I'm just seeing if these little flies are alive. I have sprayed this, but it needs doing again. I don't want these getting all over the place. But they are the type of little tiny white flies that only go for blooms. They don't seem to be interested in anything else. Unfortunately, that does mean I've got to spray the blooms. But I sprayed that with the SB bug killer and plant invigorator or whatever it's called. It's just a soapy wash. But yeah, I mean, if you look, they're all over the place. So I shall put that outside and give that another really good go in a minute. But yeah, as a plant, it's a good plant. It's got lovely strong new growth coming up in the middle of the plant here. Are there any more anywhere? Yeah, another one round here. So it's got 2 strong new growths coming up. That'll be the next place it's going to bloom, on those 2. And so far, this bulb around the back of the plant has only produced 1 spike. This bulb only produced 1. And around the front, yeah, they've all produced 1. So I thought 1 had produced 2. So this cluster of blooms is actually 2 spikes strapped together, because one of them was so long it bent over and it nearly broke. I just managed to grab it in time. So, yeah, holds a lot of water, this one. Big plant in a big pot. when I went down into the shed to get a suitable pot for the size of this plant, I registered the fact that that was the only big pot I had. Clear big pot. I got black ones, but that was the only one, and I thought if ever I get another plant along the lines of this, I haven't got any pots for it. So at some point I will have to get some big pots, but I'm more inclined to wait till I have the need and then get them, if you see what I mean. Right, and there's enough water left over there to do the mounts. I won't film that, we've looked at those recently. And I won't film doing derricks for the same reason. We did those as a one shelf racket at a time, not that long ago. So we won't bother with those, just pops back there. And this little oncidium on the table here, that doesn't get watered. That is in the cooler, shadier set. That's in the small bark perlite and moss mix. And it will be going back over there in that cooler, shadier area once these blooms are finished, which is going to be very soon. It's nearly done now. So there's only 3 plants on there at the moment. That's not the only 3 in bloom. The radiata's up on the Cattleya shelf. That likes good light. And the Cheyenne with the red blooms is on the top shelf the other side of the door. And the Shelob Tolkien pretender that isn't is down on the next shelf down because it's too big to go on this shelf with what's already there. So I put that one shelf back. Right, so that's that watering session done. Let's bring the camera back up. Ugh. Talking to my shoulders. And that is Saturday's video. I'll process it today, Friday, so that it's sat there. What I do is I load the video fully onto YouTube, write the description. I do everything I need to do. It's just on YouTube as unlisted, so you can't see it. And then all I do to make it available is make it public. It's just one click, save, and it's done. So I'll get it all ready today so that I can put that live tomorrow and you've got something up there for tomorrow. I will apologise if anybody's still here to listen. I had planned on doing a questions and answers this week and doing the answers as a live broadcast on Sunday. Well, we failed miserably on the grounds I got sidetracked doing other stuff, which is mainly the new gardening channel and doing the stuff for that, getting it moved across and everything. So I got a bit tied up with that. I want to get that going basically. So hopefully we'll have a go next week. We'll see how it goes. Hannah's down in the middle of next week for a funeral. That's my first wife's dad. She's coming down on the Wednesday and we go to the funeral on the Thursday, and then I'll drive her back later that day. So that's the sort of middle of the week that's got something going on. Probably won't film on either of those 2 days. Or I can film on Wednesday before I go and get Hannah, because I'll pick her up late in the afternoon. So yeah, it'll be something for Wednesday. Don't know what. And I'm filming this on Friday. Once I've done all this and messed around with it, I will do the Project Orchids video for today. So that'll be Friday's video. That will go live today. And yeah, apart from that, I'll see you for a chat on Sunday. Subject as yet unknown. But I've got my garden party tomorrow, so bring on the rain, go on, do your best. But basically we have lots of awnings and gazebos that overlap. So we have a large area in the garden where we can all stand watching the rain run off the tent tops and chat to each other in the rain. Lovely English weather. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.